Okay, we're going.
Okay, sweet. Are you guys cool if I lead it this time?
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, so we were just supposed to watch that video by Dr. Will and talk about it. Um, did you guys have the chance to research something that you wanted
I
to?
did.
Okay.
This is Brenda. I did.
Alright, Brenda, have at her.
Did anybody else have? If I don't want to go ahead of anybody else, but let me just.
I didn't, so go ahead.
Okay. So it says, why did the government get involved in this issue? Let me turn the light on. Hold on one second. I'm having a hard time seeing here. So, so he's talking about different issues, and one of the talked about was the program
Uh-huh.
that they have where they give money, and it says, why did the government get involved? So I looked it up, and it says the first federal welfare program was to aid I'm sorry, to dependent children, which was created as part of President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal in 1935. The program was intended to supplement existing state relief programs to widows and to provide support to families in which the father was deceased, absent, or unable to work. So so this is why the government got involved. I mean, I didn't know any of this, but eventually started to aid the widows and parents, families whose father had deceased. I guess maybe because of the war.
Yeah.
And so it says, has it been effective? So the second have been the results. So the welfare state, I'm sorry, before 1996, federal welfare was an open-ended entitlement that encouraged long-term dependency, and there was widespread agreement that it was a terrible failure. It neither reduced poverty nor helped the poor become self-sufficient. It encouraged out-of-wedlock births and weakened the work ethic. The pathologist, I'm sorry, it engaged, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time here, but anyways, it really didn't help.
Okay.
So and that's what I wanted to say. It passed from generation to generation. So basically, the government instituted because to help the widows and the fatherless, but then it became a bad thing because it actually encouraged a lot of that stuff. What do you guys have to say?
I think that's so, like my dad has his own business, and there's a not a homeless shelter. I'm echoing on someone's
Yeah, you
computer.
are.
Because there's two of you talking.
I think it's on Janessa's computer.
You're echoing?
Yeah, off of yours.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I don't hear an echo.
Just unmute yourself to be able to stop the echo.
I think you just have to mute it.
Oh, okay.
Hello? Oh, wait, we're good now. Sorry, guys. Okay, so my dad has his own business, and next to there, it's not a homeless shelter, but it's like one step up. So you're not homeless, but they put you in a place that gives you a home, and it's supposed to like re-enter you into society. Like they give you nice clothes, well, not nice clothes, like new, but they give you nice used clothes to have you go out to get a job. But when I go to work there, I majority of the time I just see them sitting around not doing anything. Like there's just people sitting out on the curb all the time, rummaging through the garbage, and they're really nice places. They're new, and it's like I'm trying to get into an apartment that's crappy and old, something I can afford, but they're being given something that's brand new and really nice. So I don't know. I do think that it doesn't work with like the welfare system because you can just see people using and abusing it, and it really frustrates me. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I definitely liked how you brought out, Brenda, that it's not making people sufficient, that it's actually making more people rely on the government. And you hear of people having children out of wedlock, out of refusing to take certain jobs because that then their government benefits are taken away and they're not able to then have those stipulations from the government handed to them. And so I think that that system needs to be changed so it has a more sufficient or more like you can only be on it for so long, or I don't know, but you're right. I think that it is a failed system, and something needs to change to help people become more self-reliant, not relying on the government more because the programs are there. So.
Well, let me give you an example. This is Brenda. Let me give you an example. My aunt had 8 children, and she had most of them she left over there in Guatemala. But when she came here to the United States, she got pregnant twice, and she kept both of those children because of welfare. If she would not have had welfare, she would have just let them go too. So my point is, I'm not saying it was a good thing for her, and it just enabled her to continue her bad habit of having children out of wedlock. And she had these 2 girls, and then both of the girls, she encouraged both of the girls to have to live off of welfare, and they both lived off of welfare, and they both had children also out of wedlock. And so, and one of my cousins, she just passed away a couple years ago, and she was really young. She was like 43. But she lived on welfare, and she had no incentive. She had no education. Her children grew up. She just had no education, had no incentive. So this doesn't give you an incentive. If you know you're going to get a check and you have food to eat and you just become complacent, you just think, I can live off of that. I don't need to go out to work. I don't need to do anything. So the government meant to do a good thing, but then it turned around and it just kind of like backfired on them. So it's and many of the programs that they set up seem to be to do the same thing. So I just found out right now, just to add another thing, I found out that all these children, I was wondering why all these children are coming across the border, like by thousands, children, minors under 18 years old. And I thought, how can that be? Well, the United States set a law that lets they just did it like a couple years ago, that children who come to the United States and they're minors, they will not be treated as adults and they will be accepted in the United States. So what did that do? It opened all the doors. Everybody over there in Central America, they're sending their kids by their thousands to just because the United States already set a law that they're not going to turn them away. And so now we have a big problem because and we've encouraged a negative behavior. So anyways, so we can move on.
I'm going to say something real quick. I think it's interesting that the government did it to try and help them become independent and like provide for themselves. And like you guys were saying, it did the complete opposite, where they just became dependent on the government and the check that they get, and they didn't learn anything. It's like the saying, like, if you want to teach a man, you guys know what I'm trying to say, teach a man to fish or whatever, don't give him fish, but teach him how, and he'll be able to provide for himself or something.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yeah. Did anyone else do some research on anything that they want to share?
I did a little bit.
Okay.
So I did some research on the on the elderly retirement plan and the Social Security and how that was. He kind of talked about the history while he was talking about it. It really made me interested as to why they put this in place, and it really was because there were all these elderly people, and a lot of them were war veterans and stuff that they wanted to take care of, and there's kind of this cry of we need to take care of our elderly. And he brought this up too, but at the time they weren't living as longer and there weren't the healthcare benefits that were as important. So it was put in place. And then as so people started paying into their retirement fund to their government and started getting tax deductibles for it. But then the government, instead of like holding that money for them, they use that money to pay off other debts. And so there's no longer that money to pay for them, except for now the government's in debt to all these people with their social security who are going into retirement now. And so a lot of people are, I don't know, mad that this program is set in place the way it was, where when it was first in place, it was good for the time, but it needed to be changed, and it isn't functioning for now. But I think the real problem came with the government taking the money that they were paying into it and spending it on their other debts. And so now that money is gone for the elderly people, and they haven't changed the program at all. And so people aren't getting their Social Security back, and sorry, I'm getting a little jumbled. And the government no longer is able to pay them, and the people are angry because they've been putting in money to their Social Security, and the government's program was never set up for it to take care of people for 10 plus years. And so I kind of have a hard time like finding out how to fix this. But I thought it was really interesting seeing how that program was put in place so long ago and how it's coming back to affect us so badly now. So, and that's really all the research I did. I didn't go into too much detail for that. Anyone has any thoughts on it?
Thank you, Allison. I think that's interesting that like the government really is trying to help, but really they're just not.
Yeah.
I don't know. They have good intentions, some of them, I feel like, but it just backfires.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but I'm sorry, they're giving people this feeling of entitlement, and that's what the problem is. We have a feeling of entitlement, and people. I have heard people say, you know what, the government needs to do something about everything. The government has to do something about it, and then they don't take responsibility. So the government, in their efforts, there's two things they're doing. They're either doing the efforts to help, but at the same time, they want the people to rely on the government, and that's not helping. And Allison is right. Allison, I'm not sure who said it, but about the fish, you teach them how to fish. So some of their programs have to be done different. So not to be handing things down to them, but to actually help them promote growth, help them learn a skill, something that they can do to be able to change that behavior. But they did this Child Left Behind, and what they did is they lowered the test scores so the kids would be able to so it will show that we're making progress, and we're not. We're catering again. We're putting crutches on people, and nothing's happening. So the government wants to be more government and more government.
I thought about how you were saying that everyone just kind of relies on the government,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes them not want to work. They know they're going to get that check. I was thinking, like, when you're struggling in the church and you have the church help you, they don't just give it to you. Like, I've known a couple people that have needed to get like stuff from the bishop's storehouse, and they've gotten help with their rent a couple times for struggling families. But they go and work at like the storehouse and the cannery that's around here, and they work for what they get. So I mean, I think that's a good, how you said, Brenda, how they should work for the things that they're going to get. So I thought the church has a good example of, they don't just hand it out to the members, like they actually have them give service to receive those things too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that makes a big difference.
And so, I mean, then you really appreciate it. You're like, you don't just get it from the person, you're actually working for it. And you may not be able to work, I don't know, at a real job, but because of unemployment, but at least the church is showing you, hey, you can still work for what you get and not have that, like, guilt on your shoulders. And then eventually I think the guilt turns into not caring anymore, and then that's why people are just relying on the government. They just get lazy.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. I really like how you brought up the church as an example. I think also with that is the accountability. Like you are reporting to your bishop, you're talking with your bishop about ways you can change your situation and stuff. Where the government just doesn't have it set up like that. Where you're sort of accountable to the government, but it's so distant and so like you fill out the forms online and stuff and everything. Where it's that accountability is kind of lost. I think that's a big key too on how people just aren't being as well, accountable or self-reliant because they are getting away with it, and like you said, they just don't care anymore.
Mhm. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's, yeah, like what Jennifer was saying with the church, it's a really good example of what to do because it helps people appreciate what they get rather than just being given for free and expecting that. They know that they're going to have to work for it, even if it's not like real hard work. They're going to have to put some effort, and then they're going to appreciate what they get. And I feel like with the government giving money all the time, like people don't always appreciate the things that they get, and so they just, like you said, they feel entitled. So
That would probably be answering more like the third question
yeah.
based on George Will's speech. Yeah. What could the government be doing right now to help the situation more effectively?
I just researched about the Social Security with like how the government helps the youth, and something I found was interesting that they give money to the kids whose parents are either disabled or retired or have passed away. And I actually think that's helpful as long as it's not like what we've talked about where the kids get dependent on that money in order to survive, but it just helps stabilize the family.
It does.
That's a good point. For disabled veterans, my dad is a disabled war veteran from Vietnam, and so I get benefits from the government for school. So they were able to help me go to school by giving me a certain amount of money for a certain amount of credits that I have to take. So I mean that's a good thing that they say you need to take like 10 or 12 credits, however many it is for that time, and then we'll give you your money. But if you don't take that, then you can't get the money for school, and you can only use it for school. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think that's a good part that I really like about what the government's doing is that they're helping me out personally, just a personal experience. Like they're helping me out with school because my parents might not be able to, and so I think that's a good example of what the government is doing right now. And so at least one thing.
That's good. The stipulations that they're putting are positive because they're encouraging you to go and that money's to be used only for that.
Yeah.
And when they do it like open-ended, it doesn't, when they open it, if there's no stipulations on how to use the money, then people will abuse it. But in your case, that's good because they're helping you and they're it's a good incentive for you.
All right. Let's go on to the next question. So it says, Dr. Will cites a problem that no one wants to talk about. Do you guys remember what that is?
Yes.
Education, right? Mm-hmm. So with Bronfenbrenner's model, how is this issue impacting children and families, communities, and our nation? Brenda, do you want to go, and then Allison and Jennifer?
Sure.
Now, are we doing the first question and the second question? Like the problem is education, right?
Yeah, so the problem that no one wants to talk about is education, and it says, with the model, how is this impacting children and families and communities?
Oh, this is just really it is just impacting it horribly. All the systems are being impacted. Mm-hmm. People are, again, we're talking about responsibility. People are not taking responsibility for education. And when it comes free, people don't appreciate it. And so here in the United States, free education, and parents feel that it's the school responsibility to educate the children. And education, you feel like, okay, my money has to come for something, so I want to see my kid growing and being educated because I have an monetary interest in it. In my country, there is no free education. In my country, if you don't have money to send your kid to school, your kid doesn't go to school. So people pay for their education. People pay for education over there, and they motivate their kids to be educated, and that helps the community. That helps the environment. They're helping send out kids who are prepared, doctors, nurses, whatever. So when there's no education, or there's nobody's taking responsibility of that, the schools don't want to take responsibility, the parents don't want to take the responsibility, so every system is going to get impacted.
Yeah, I think that's really true. I'm next, right? To go.
Yeah.
All right. I really like those points you brought out, Brenda, especially how they affect the family, and the family's not taking responsibility, and the education not taking responsibility, and how it kind of backfires on each other. I also looked at how it affects the nation as a whole. Like, we're often hearing about, like, where the American students can't compare with, like, students in China and stuff because we're just not as far along. But I think that it really is where education gets pulled so apart so much from the government and that kind of stuff, that it reflects onto, like, the national level and the students that we're producing and what we're contributing to the world and stuff. It's definitely lowered since teachers aren't getting paid enough, parents are not being active in schools and that kind of stuff. And it all reflects back into the bigger picture too, where you can break it down into the family and school levels, but it just keeps getting wider from there. And I thought that was really interesting how the country as a whole is having so many problems from not having a quality education at elementary and secondary levels. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if that's completely putting into the Grofender's model, but I know that's kind of how I saw it impacting kind of on the bigger scale.
I don't even know, like, how they would be able to fix this. I don't know. It's such a big problem that they don't feel like the government knows where to start on how to fix it. But you were talking about how the issue is impacting children and families, communities, and our nations. Okay. Talking about how Brenda said that her country you have to pay for school, I thought that was kind of interesting, like how it's put on your shoulders how your child is if you aren't capable of sending them to school. So if I couldn't send my kids to school, then it needs to be my responsibility, because they're my children, to teach them something. And I don't know, I thought that was really interesting. I didn't even know that. But then I thought about, like, what would happen if, like, the government made us pay for schooling? And then I thought, like, oh my gosh, I think Ravik would happen. Like, it'd be so crazy here. I would want to overthrow the government if that happened. But yeah, I just thought about how that was really interesting.
Mm-hmm. But that's what makes the difference. Kids, over there, people are educated.
Yeah.
Many people are educated. Of course, you have the group that they're not getting an education because they can't afford it. But at the same time, what I'm saying is that maybe part of it should be require from parents to be part of the children's education. And then nobody wants to talk about it. Again, it's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Everybody wants to. It's somebody else's responsibility. The parents think it's somebody else's responsibility. Their responsibility for the school. I know that because I worked at a school, and a parent came and told me, I want to know what my son has straight F's, and I want to know what the counselor is going to do about it. And I looked at the lady and I asked her, I said, how many kids do you have? And she said, I have 4 kids. I said, well, you have 4 kids. The counselor has to deal with 500 kids. So first of all, it should be her responsibility. What is she doing at home? You know, the kids were being allowed to watch TV till wee hours of the night. The kid was into pornography. I could just tell you, the kid had straight F's because he couldn't even make it to school in the morning because parents had a television for him in his own room.
Wow.
And so this is the problem that you see. Where does the responsibility lie? On the parent. The school can't really do anything. The other systems will suffer, and everybody's trying to figure out how can we help these kids. Well, we're not home to help these kids, and parents won't, and we don't want to make them responsible. So, nobody's teaching. Nobody wants to tell the parent, you need to be a parent and be responsible for your kid.
Mhm. Brenda, I think that's really interesting. I think that is why it's so important that we focus on the family, that we have to strengthen families and be advocates for the family, because it's in the homes, in the families, where it starts, and that is the basic unit of society, and we build on top of that. I think that's why we need to advocate for that, and because once we advocate for the family, we are then advocating for education and community and that kind of stuff, because it's in our homes that we teach our children, and that affects the next step up. And I think that's really interesting. Thank you for bringing that up, Brenda.
Real quick, I'm in another class that's talking about this exact issue, about how kids in America are stupid compared to kids in other countries. And they think that the cure is give the schools more money. But that's not true, because if they give them more money, then they use it for stupid things usually. Like, I don't know. And like everyone was saying, it's dependent on the parents to show the kids an example of what they need to do. So that's my 2 cents.
It's hard because like every different part of the government, like welfare, affects the parents and affects the children, because it's like they wanted the parents just teach them to be on that stuff, and then it affects their education because they are too lazy to go to school, so then the education's affected, and then it's like everything is affected from everything. Like it all intertwines, and so it's difficult to fix one thing, but then if you fix one thing completely, it could do a domino effect and help a lot of other things. So
Right. All right, let's go on to the next one. So it says, according to Dr. Will, one thing you can do for your country is reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. Do you guys agree with this? Brenda, and then Allison, and Jennifer?
Is Brenda still there? Or?
Brenda? I guess not.
I don't know what happened to her.
Wasn't she
Yes,
last
still here.
year?
Well, I can go if we're.
Go ahead.
Let's see. All right. This question kind of, I feel like this like red blood Republican coming out. I'm like, yeah, I get the government out and stuff, and I should be responsible for my own things. And but really, like we talked about, the government sometimes has good intentions. Like they want to help people in poverty. They want to help women who aren't supported by a spouse and that kind of stuff, and they want to help them and bring them so they can compete with the rest of society. And yet, at the same time, we have to be careful that we're not giving our freedoms away. Right. That we're not, by asking for more handouts and that kind of stuff, that we're slowly giving our rights to the government. And I think we need to be careful in looking for ways like our car insurance. And I think that's the big thing with the health insurance, is taking away another freedom to choose that private sector.
Yeah.
And it's taking that away, another freedom that we have, where we're now relying on the government for one more thing. And I think in many areas we need to be taking responsible for our own and trying to not dip into government resources and stuff. And I think it's good for people who truly need them. But at the same time, I think that we need to work to be accountable to ourselves and not become complacent on government handouts. Yeah.
I like that.
I like how you said that we need to work to get those government handouts if you need them, you know? Like single moms, if they aren't able to leave the house because they have kids for what or whatever reason, then I think it would kind of make sense maybe give them a job they can do from home, maybe for like train them for helping other moms or something like that. You know, something to give them to do to realize they have to work for what they're getting. They're not just going to be able to sit at home
Yeah.
and do nothing and have 10 kids running around that will then learn from her. But I think they do need something to get them going and not just to motivate them. That's what I was looking for. But yeah, I think they need something to motivate them. Did that even answer the question? Okay.
Brenda, are you back?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good.
So
So-
we're talking about the question that says, according to Dr. Will, you should leave a spacious portion of your life which the country is not responsible. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. I agree with it too. I really
Yes, of course.
All right. Let's go on to the last question. In what areas do you personally feel the government should be involved and should not be involved in addressing your chosen threat to children and families? Brenda, do you want to go first?
Did we lose her again?
It looks like it.
Brenda?
Um,
All right, Allison.
Okay. This is hard because there are so many areas that the government has their hands in. Like, they have their hands in like food safety and that kind of stuff. And I think there should be regulation and those kind of things, and there should be some regulation in education. But at the same time, I think that they should kind of take a laissez-faire approach where they aren't putting their hands in business and stuff. And I don't know. It's so hard because there are so many areas. But I think the main one for family is that the government should kind of break it down more to states to be in charge of, especially the, sorry, I'm getting confused, like education and stuff. And for families, I think the big one we've seen lately is marriage and the government regulating who can get married and who cannot and stuff. And I think that's, I don't know, it's hard because marriage does bring in like the tax benefits and that kind of stuff and should be looked at, but at the same time it's such a personal and family issue. I have a hard time deciding where the government should draw the line or should have their hand within that, and same with families and things we talked about. Sorry, I feel like I'm kind of rambling about stuff.
Very good. What was your issue that you chose? I'm just curious.
Oh, my issue that I chose was the No Child Left Behind Act, and I kind of researched school children and how the government brought in standardized testing to try to bring the standards up to the level with the rest of the country for a level of education, but how it's brought some standards up and other ones it's pushed away and made things harder, and so I don't know.
Okay, that makes sense. What about you, Jennifer?
It's interesting that you brought up how you can get tax benefits for getting married, and how like if two gay people want to get married and they get tax breaks, blah blah blah. But also with like even marriage between a man and a woman, I think a big reason why people do cohabitate now. Mine wasn't cohabitation. Mine was abuse against women and children. But she made me think of this. So there's different programs that single mothers can be on, and they get a certain amount of money for maybe having disabled children. I know my brother's girlfriend, she gets money for her child, and she's autistic, and she gets like $45,000 a year just to have her, like to send her to a certain school. And then they're not getting married because if she gets married to him, then they don't get certain benefits, some money. I think she gets less money, and she doesn't get some other stuff, and then she can't live where she wants to live because they have to be single mothers with children. And so I thought that was really interesting that like they want you to be married and they want you to be self-sufficient, but at the same time they're limiting you from doing that because I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because then she'll lose all of her benefits and so that's another reason they don't want to get married. So they cohabitate instead. So it's like a vicious cycle that's never ending. Like,
Wow.
yeah. But in the areas, personally, I feel like okay. So then, for the government, I don't know. I think it's interesting that to go with my personal threat. I'm doing my internship right now for the Dibble Institute, and it's online. And they have me look up different organizations that are giving government funding, and there's so much money going into the abuse for women, but at the same time, I like the shelters. They're like, we need more money, but then at the same time, it doesn't look like they're doing much, if that makes sense. Like, you can see, like, there's, like, reviews on Google, because I have to, like, research, like, who's the name and stuff, and I've seen some people have reviews that are like, this shelter didn't do anything for me. I went to this shelter, and it was so much better. And so I'm like, where's that money really going if it's going into the shelter? Like, it's a lot of money, like $150,000 worth of money. Like, that's a lot of money. Where's it all going? So you wonder, like, are those people in those, like, in the domestic abuse shelters, are their intentions good, or are their intentions going for, we just want the money and we'll pretend like we're helping them?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I think the government, I think was it Allison that just said that certain things should be within a state?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, like, that's something that should be just governed by the state, because there's so many domestic abuse centers. Like, I did not realize how many there were, but there are a lot. And I think they can just get lost in the mix with just being government aid. Like, it should be the states in control of them. But, yeah, that was just with my specific chosen threat that I thought the government should be involved, but to a smaller area per state, which I think would be a better idea than the whole thing.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear us, Brenda?
Okay, good. Yes, I can hear you. Well, just really quick, before my computer goes out, my threat was on parenting and disciplining, basically parenting, and I don't think the government should get involved in how we educate our children and what we do. And so I know that CRC wants to come in and do that, so that they want to tell us what we teach our children. But I think the whole thing really started when people started to get into the business of the family, how parents were disciplining the children. You know, maybe classes might have been required for children, so there wasn't like a lot of corporal punishment, but a lot of it, you know, people used to grow up and be productive citizens, and they had a great respect for their parents. And now they have no respect for their parents. The parents cater to them, they give everything to them, and they still have no respect for the parents. So, and they're running amok in society. So the government getting involved with how the parents teach and nurture their children, it's really created a huge problem in our society. And you know, people live like that for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, that children were born in parents and they honor their parents, and there was, you know, the parents decided what the punishment was, and they did what the best for their children. And you know, until they started getting involved, then we become the society that we become, where children are horrible to the parents, and you know, we are living the last days and we can see it, but it's just the government again getting involved where they shouldn't be getting involved. So no, I don't agree the government. I don't think the government should get involved in how I nurture or teach my child.
Okay,
I agree.
fair enough. My threat that I chose was pornography, and I feel like if the government would regulate things a lot better and not allow as much to go into media, then that would be better. But really, other than that, I don't think the government can really do anything. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think for pornography, the standards of movies, which
yeah,
like a G movie in like, I don't know, a PG movie in 20 years ago is a PG-13 or R, or no, is it backwards? I just said that backwards, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys get what I mean.
Government, the government could do something. The government could do something, but they won't do it because in their mind, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's you have to. Their friend of mine is like, that's part of being a man, and that's what you just do. So to them, when you're talking to people like that and trying to, they have no moral values when it comes to that. So to them, that's part of being married, and if they're married, it's everything goes, and they can view and do anything, and so it's really hard to have them have a conscience over that.
yeah,
It's interesting that like they don't really have morals on that, but then when something big happens, like um, nude photos were leaked from people's iClouds a couple of weeks ago, stars, then they get all up in hands like, oh my gosh, like how could you take nude photos of yourself? But it's like, but you pretty much say it's okay to do that in like media and movies. Like there was a movie with Cameron Diaz, I don't remember. I think it was called Sex Tape or something like that, where she made a sex tape with her husband and it got released on her iCloud. I only saw the commercial for it and I didn't like that. Oh wow! But then it's like they kind of make it like, yeah, it's okay to do it because it's funny. So that's a big reason. Like the media and the government should regulate it, but they never will.
yeah, they don't have the standard.
Because it's socially accepted.
Yeah, it's socially accepted, but then at the same time, it's not socially accepted in some. I don't know. It's all interesting.
But for the most part, for the government, it's socially accepted, so they're not going to regulate it.
Yeah, they probably think they have better things to worry about.
Yeah, with the government, they also they draw the line on child pornography.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and that's really it. And beyond that, they kind of people can argue that it's their personal right to do that kind of thing. So I think the government doesn't want to touch it. Like maybe even they disagree or they don't like it, but they just don't even want to get into it. I think at that point too. So.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay, does anyone want to sum up what we talked about real quick?
Well, I can go ahead and sum it up if you guys can hear me.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so we talked at the beginning, why did the government get involved in many of these issues? And we came to the conclusion that even though they had good intentions to get into help in these different issues like welfare and Social Security, in the long run, people have taken advantage of this because maybe they didn't regulate certain things and they left it like open-ended. So, and they also misused the money. So a lot of the programs could have been positive, but maybe they should have done it for a short period of time. But nonetheless, they have really, they come up with laws, but some of them haven't really worked out for the interest of the country. And based on George Will's speech, what could the government be doing right now to help the situation? We talked a little bit about how the government, how they should again, what we're just saying, they should regulate certain things. They should maybe leave the responsibility to the parents or to the state in different situations. Maybe not so much in the higher systems, but maybe within the community and the family. We also talked about that the problem that Dr. Will cited about a problem that no one wants to talk about, and it's education. And we talked about how education is something that should be, the parents should be involved in the education, and everybody's kind of, all the systems are trying to throw the ball at each other, that the school's not teaching, the government wants to give more money for the kids to go to school, you know, for the schools, but still the money's not being taken to where it needs to be, and a lot of times, so basically we're not putting the responsibility where it needs to be, where the parents should be more responsible for the children's education. And anyways, less kids are being educated, and that's affecting many of the systems. And according to, and that's with the Bronfenbers model. How is this issue impacting children and families? Because people are not getting educated, then this is impacting all the other systems. Our communities, we're not having well-educated kids that are going out to the community to be good citizens, and they don't have degrees. They can't, you know, they're not able to enter the workforce with enough knowledge to be able to, you know, give to the society. So yes, it does impact the whole system. And according to Dr. Will, one thing we can do for your country is to reserve a spacious portion of your life for which your country is not responsible. And if you agree with that, and you know, we all said yes, we agree with that. And regarding our own threats, each one of us said that, yeah, maybe the government should not be involved, or maybe they should just have maybe a small part in it, but not completely have a full involvement in these threats. And that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Brenda. That was
I don't
awesome.
know if you guys want to add anything else. I know I missed a lot, so if you guys want to add.
You covered it. Jennifer, thanks for saving me.
I think it's echoing.
What?
Between Brenda and like echoing.
Oh, I think it's on Brenda's.
All right. Well,
Jennifer,
thank you
so much.
Okay, I'm gonna end it. So I guess we'll all see or talk next week.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
We'll see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye-bye.